real quick as a parting shot for this class, but more importantly, so you guys moving forward have a better understanding of After Effects, or hopefully you're a little more comfortable in this. Also, I'll say up front, I've been very presumptuous and I stole 2 of Tyler's files and I stole some of Brittany's files. I'm going to use those as examples, so hopefully you guys will not be too mad at me for using your stuff. So, real quick, this is After Effects again. You open up After Effects, there's a different window that comes up that asks you if you want to open a previous file or start a new file. I'll usually just do start a new file, and then it's going to ask me, do I want to do a new composition or new composition from footage? I'll usually do new composition from footage since you will have outputted from a specific program, so it's already a specific size. So I can do new composition from footage, and it's going to say, okay, great, what footage? So all I need to do now is go to my folder, which I called example. And in this case, it was Tyler's files, they were AVIs. I'm on the Mac side of my computer right now. Macs don't love AVIs, so I used Handbrake to convert it to MP4. If you were in Windows, AVIs would work just fine. So I'm going to say I want that. And I'm just going to select these 2 files and hit open. And it's going to say, okay, cool. This is going to ask me, do I want a new composition from selection? Yes, I do. It's going to ask me the duration, single composition. Do I want to make it into one composition or multiple compositions? Because you can have multiple compositions. Just think of the various compositions as project files. All right, and I'm going to say okay, and it brings it in. Now, if you notice, it brings it in and it puts it right here in my main work area. It makes a composition for me, and it puts them in here as 2 separate layers. All right, I'm using the scroll wheel to zoom in and out a little bit. And I'm also going to back up, undo this, and show you a different way to get back to where we are right now. So I'm going to select all this, delete it. Yeah, I don't want any of that. You could have just done this, and I think this is the way I showed you guys previously. You could go File, Import, File, go to your desktop and just say, cool, I want these files, and it brings them in. Now, when it brings them in, it doesn't create a composition for you. All right? So say I want to make a composition. I can right-click on this and say, hey, new composition from selection. So it will create my composition and give me my work area based on that video file that I brought in. Now this is headphones, turntable, MP4. This is the folding one. Now say I want these to go one after the other. I think this is where some of you were running into some drama and problems. Okay, it helps if we know how long this thing is. So right now it's defaulting to, I think it's about 5 seconds. If I grab this and move this over, I can see. Okay, yeah, so right here, this shows us a bunch of information about the various files we brought in. Type, it's an AVI. Size, 2.3 megs. Frame rate, 30 frames per second. Input, output, basically that's just saying it starts at 0 and goes to 5 seconds in 1 frame. More importantly, it lets me know how long this is. So obviously that's not going to work because this one's 5 seconds and this one's 2.5 seconds, or 2 seconds and 26 frames, so almost 3 seconds long. If I add this by clicking, I can drag it here, I can drag it here, and it makes a new layer, and you can now see that layer on top of the other one. All right. So how do I show this and then the next one? Well, you see right here, this is where it starts, this is where it ends, this is where the original file starts, this is where it ends. So I need to make my composition timeline, which is what this is, longer, because right now the entire timeline's 5 seconds. So I'm just going to do this. This is the composition that I created. And in fact, if I want to give it a more unique name, I can hit the enter or the return key if you're on the Mac, and then I can give it a name and say, this is my final composition. So I can get out of Leslie's class and never see him again. And see, it's now given it that name. To change the length of your composition, come up here to the top where it says composition, and I go composition settings. This is just basically giving you all the information about your composition. Right here where it says start time code, it starts at 0. Duration, this is where I can come in and tell it to be as long as I want. I realize this can get a little crazy and confusing if you don't know what you're looking at. Real quick so you understand, since this is a 30 frame per second, so it takes 30 frames to make 1 second. See this first set of zeros, or the 0, 1? That will go from 0 to 30. This second set of zeros or numbers, this will go from 0 to 60. Why? Because there's 60 seconds in a minute. Then this is where we would get into an hour. So this will go from 0 to 60 because there's 60 minutes in an hour. Very important thing to remember. So this is 60, this is 60, this. So this first set's going to be 30. The second set's going to be based on 60, and this is going to be based on 60. And then this is just who knows how long you would want it to go if you're going that crazy with it. I don't know why you would be doing that. So very important to understand. So right here, I'm just going to go a little high and figure I want to go a little bit longer than this. So I'm going to make it, say, 20 seconds and 1 frame. Now you do that, you hit OK, and it looks like nothing changed. See this little slider right here? This says, hey, show me this area. So if I want to see more of my timeline, I can grab that, move it over, and see my entire timeline. Now, that's where we can begin to fix this whole layering of the two things happening together. Well, I'm starting out with what, maybe the turntable? So if that's, let me come over here. I'm going to click the little eye to turn off that top layer. I can now see my bottom layer. So now if I hit the space bar to play, it plays that animation. And then it ends. See, because that's where it ends. So if I want to back up and line up right with the edge of that, if I hold the shift key as I move this little time slider, it will snap to the end of that. Now I can grab this top layer, I'm going to turn it back on. Now if you notice, I turned it back on. You don't see it here. Why? Because it ends right here at the 2 second and 20 second frame mark. But I'm all the way down here at 5 seconds. How do you know that? It shows you a couple spots. Right here it tells you where you're at. Right here it tells you where you're at. If you click on this, you can then type in where you want to go. So I could tell it I want to go to, let me do this again, 2:00, hit enter, and it jumps to 2 seconds. And now you can see the two things on top of each other. So if I go back to 5:00, hit enter, it jumps right back to the end. And now I can click and drag to move this over. And as you notice, you see how it's scrolling through that as it moves around. Now I can put it right there and pray that it's right. Or a quick key to help you with this is, if I move it over here, I'm on that layer. If I click the left bracket key, it'll slam that sucker into place and say, oh, you want to move this over and line it up with that exact point. So I'm going to move this around. I'm going to hold my shift key to snap to the end of that. I'm going to select this top layer and hit the left bracket key. And now if I back it up and hit play, jumps from one to the other. Okay? So now I can get down here. Now, something else that I think would be helpful for some of you guys, say you wanted to open up with your name or whatever. Easy way to do that would be to say, hey, let me go to 2 seconds, I'm going to take both of these. I'm going to select both of these layers, grab, move that over, and I'm going to hold the shift key to snap this to that 2-second point. So everything before this is going to be pitch black. All right, if you wanted a different color in there, you could either change the background by going into composition settings, and right here changing your background color, so you could make the background white if you wanted, or you could do this. You could go layer, new, solid, and I don't know, make it green, or I'll do blue since Tyler has kind of a bluish thing going on. Hit OK, and it makes a new solid layer. I only do it this way because I want you guys to understand something. When you deal with images, images can be as long or as short as you want them to exist because it's just an image. Video is only going to be as long as it's supposed to be. So if it's 5 seconds long, it's going to be that long. It can be shorter, you can cut it down, but it can't be longer unless you extend it out in some way. So right here, I'm going to actually move this. How I did that was I just came over here and grabbed that edge, and I just dragged it down to say, nope, I only want you to exist for X amount of time. So I'm going to go to 2 seconds by clicking on that, hitting 200, hitting enter. You don't have to do the colon thing, but I've gotten into the habit of doing it. And to snap this to that, I'm moving this side, I'm holding shift, and it snaps. And now I have blue, and then it goes right into that. Okay? Now, if you wanted to put your name in here, I could grab the text tool, which is the T up here. I can click right here in the middle and say, my name is, or let me not be stupid, Leslie Lloyd. That is me. Okay? The character palette should have been over here. I'm not seeing it. There it is. So this is where I can choose the size. It gives you access to pretty much any font you have loaded on your system. Now you have to be careful because you can inadvertently grab the wrong layer. So usually what I'll do is come over here and lock the layer if I know it's where I want it to be, and that way I can come back over here and try and grab the right one, line that up, and now I'm good to go. So now I have my name, problem. Text is just like an image. It can be as long or as short as I want it to be. So I'm just gonna snap that over there so it only lasts that long. Okay? Now, having created that piece of text, I can select it, and I'm going to do a Command D on Mac. It would be a Control D in Windows. And I can duplicate that piece of text. I'm going to move it over because I want it to exist here. And now I'm going to move it up here. I'm just going to double click on it and say polygon count. I don't know, I'm guessing, I don't know, 1,500 polys. All right, so I could have done that. And then just come back down here and dial this down to a different size of maybe like 25. Or, that looks like it's a touch too small. All right, but as you can see now I have text in place indicating how many polygons I'm using. And I can just make this as long as that is up. So if you needed to, you could have different text here, or you can just extend that over so it stays up there even when that's happening. Okay? Now, the last thing I wanted to show you guys, because I think this is one of the other areas where people are getting a little confused. What happens if you render out a bunch of images instead of 2 video files? Check this out. I'm going to hide this real quick. I'm going to come back over here and show you something. So this is one of the things that Brittany had rendered out. So she rendered out a sequence of images of her table rotating. All right. As you can see, if I keep going through, you can see it does in fact rotate. Now, one of the cool things with After Effects is you can bring in individual images, but if you have a sequence of images, this is what it will do. I'm going to go File, Import, File. I'm going to go to that folder. I'm going to select the first image. Now, when I do that, if you notice down here, it says, oh, hey, do you want me to import this JPEG sequence? Because I noticed there's a sequence of images. I'm going to say, yeah, cool, please do that. I hit open, and right here it brings it in, and if you notice, it actually tells me, hey, this is like 10 seconds long, this sequence of images, because it's actually looking at those images. I'm going to click and drag this. I can either drag it here, down here, whatever the case may be. It looks at it like a video. Basically, it brings it in and puts one frame after the other to create a little movie for you. And oh wow, that's just about perfect. I was kind of guessing at the length, but it looks like that might actually work out. So I'm just going to move this over, put it there. I want it to, why is it not snapping? Okay, I'll use the little left bracket tool to move it over. And now, if I back this sucker up and hit play, my name cuts to that, text comes up, rotate, rotate, rotate. Next piece comes up, a little bit of animation, cool job, Tyler. This comes up, and I get a nice little rotation on my table, and all is right with the world, and voila. And then to end this out, I could easily just come in here and select that, and I could duplicate them. And I'm going to hit the right bracket tool to move them both over. I'll move them up in my layers. I'm just saying, I'm just going to stick them here. I would probably go ahead and say, okay, cool. This rotation ends at 1924, so I could say, all right, composition settings, and say, hey, I need another 2 seconds. So I'm just going to say, extend this out to 22 seconds, pull that over. I'm going to grab these two layers and move them over right here. And now I'll let that complete its rotation and go back to the end piece where I have the background and I have my name, and then it's just a matter of spitting this out. Now to spit all this out, it's a matter of going composition, and I would want to add to my render queue. This is your render queue. This is where you spit this sucker out. This is where you could then go best settings, and I usually leave it at best, full, use no proxies, and then right here is where I tell it how long I want it to be. 22 seconds is fine because that's the length of my composition. I hit OK. Lossless. I'm telling it I want it to be QuickTime. Format options. This is where I choose the compression. We'll just go Apple ProRes 422 or Apple ProRes 422 since I'm on Mac system right now, or on the Mac side. I'm not on the Windows side of my machine. You could have left it in animation, or if you're on the Windows side, you could tell it to go with the Intel. That's fine too. Audio, I don't have any audio, so I'm not pressed about that. If I did, I would probably leave it at all this and hit OK. And then this is just saying, hey, where do you want to send this? I'm going to send it to my desktop. Name it whatever you want. Hit save, and then you hit render. This little thing runs across letting you know that, oh, hey, I'm rendering out this movie you created, or rendering out this project you've created to give you something that you can upload for this class or for some future class, or whatever the case may be, because that's what the teacher wants to see. And then I let this finish up, and done. It gives you that little dinging, ringing sound to say, hey, I'm done. I can hide After Effects, and now if I come over here and double click on this and hit play, I now have my scene created. I have put all this stuff together. I have my 2 videos. I also have this image sequence that I brought in, which is now functioning like a video also and playing beautifully with this lovely, lovely rendering. And done. So hopefully that makes a little more sense and fixes some of the drama some of you guys are running into.